In this breaking story, a top psychologist just went public with major Trump health concerns. That's right. You know there's a big problem when even major psychologists are sounding the alarm. How's it going, everybody? Hunter Avalone here with Occupy Democrats. Welcome back to another video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button if you also think Donald Trump is insane. And this is why Trump is consistently getting called out for being unstable.
To be honest, the president's remarks I think, indicate a level of instability. It's not just shocking, it's not just offensive, it's bizarre, it is erratic, it's volatile, and I think it indicates a mental state that we should all be questioning right now, whether that's emotional, mental, what have you. It is not normal to make these accusations. It is not normal to invoke these kinds of threats of violence. And it's also not normal to also dramatically misquote, as Carolyn Leavitt was doing, what these members of Congress said. They made a very clear message to U.S. service members, which is that you do not have to obey an illegal order. And I think that's an important message to reiterate because this administration seems to be increasingly trying to go down that path.
And as if that's not bad enough, even his former White House lawyer is now calling him evil. Still not as mind-blowing as the breaking story you're about to see.
And the courts really are not designed. The courts don't have the ability to say what's best for America. They can't look at a case that way. They have to say what does the Constitution require? And the Constitution really is not adequate to deal with a president as evil as Trump is, somebody whose desire to accumulate and abuse power. And by denigrating the judiciary, Trump, is basically trying to weaken one of the only remaining pillar that is standing up to him to prevent the total authoritarianism that he desires. And that war is very dangerous for us all. We need a very strong judiciary, particularly this time where the constitutional stresses are extreme and Trump's abuses of power are unprecedented. I mean, he's committing war crimes in Venezuela and Colombia against the advice of JAG officers who gave that advice and then were fired or sidelined. Wholesale abuses of the law and the Constitution by Lindsey Halligan and Bondi and Trump in connection with the Comey and James cases. They've come out and attacked the Comey judge merely for asking questions about those abuses. So. There is a war, and we should be very concerned about it.
That's right. It's one thing to be called unstable. It's a whole different story when a top psychologist is calling you unstable. And that brings us to our breaking story.
Mary Trump said she saw that look and thought, oh, it's my grandfather. Is that, do people replicate their parents with illnesses and things?
Well, of course, Alzheimer's is genetic, so he very much has it in his family. He may have Alzheimer's, he may have frontotemporal dementia. The symptoms, actually, there's more than one kind of dementia, but his symptoms seem to point more towards frontotemporal dementia. But I'm glad you mentioned the look. This may not sound like a very serious medical diagnostic criteria, but it really is. It's sort of like what Justice Brandeis said about pornography. I know it when I see it.
Right.
The average person knows that blank, disoriented, deer in the headlights look when they see it. And if they've ever had a demented relative, they recognize it. You're right, we saw it in both of those situations. And frankly, we saw it from Joe Biden at the debate as well. That moment where the camera panned in on him and he had that blank, uncomprehending look, that was the moment we lost the republic.
And you can see it in the reaction of other people around too, can't you? Because people behave differently when someone is exhibiting the symptoms of something, which even if they don't know what it is.
And we saw that blank look again when he was wandering in Japan. That scene where he was with the prime minister, and 3 times she had to physically guide him because he was just sort of staring and incomprehensive and like not knowing what the next move was. And she had to direct over here. We're going to walk over here.
Well, and you see her look of shock, right? Do you remember when she goes like this because he walks straight past the band?
And I was gonna say, and then he walks straight past her, about 20 soldiers down the line in the wrong direction, and then a soldier comes and guides him to where the other dignitaries are. When people develop dementia, they become the worst versions of themselves. Whatever personality issues or problems they have begin to deteriorate, and they become even more crude, disorganized, aggressive, confused versions of that personality disorder. So, you know, he was always that way, but in this term, he started cursing a lot. And that was a departure, right? And this kind of saying, quiet piggy, it's so disinhibited and crude. And other ways in which he's been disinhibited and impulsive. He was supposed to have trade negotiations with the Prime Minister of Canada, and then because Doug Ford, the Premier of Ottawa, posted some video of Ronald Reagan saying that he was against tariffs.
Yeah, it was an ad campaign.
Right, it was an ad campaign. Yeah, and Donald Trump, and he was against tariffs, so it's fair to play to him. He put a video out that had Ronald Reagan talking about it. He got so irritated by that video that he called off the trade negotiations. I mean, who does that? Who calls off a high-level meeting with a head of state because you got pissed off about something you saw on social media over your cornflakes that morning? I mean, that's the kind of level of impulsivity we're talking about. And even with his tariffs, it's almost like the Queen of Hearts, off with her head, 200% tariffs. I saw something on social media that annoyed me.
It's so interesting. And when you say that this is, he's a malignant narcissist, this has been with him since childhood. I remember you saying, and frankly, I thought you were being hyperbolic when you said that there was an incident of him throwing rocks at little children when he was growing up in Queens, and I thought that can't possibly be true. And then, in fact, I found the anecdote in Maggie Haberman, the reporter from the New York Times book. I think the book is called Confidence Man, where she has the very anecdote you were talking about. So I apologize if I looked slightly quizzical when you said that, because I couldn't believe it would be true. But do these symptoms of dementia also get worse when you are under a period of real stress? Because I'm thinking about so the impact of the Epstein files, which has been going on and on and on, and it's the story that no matter how he tries to change the narrative, it always comes back to the Epstein files. Is that something that will be gnawing away somewhere within his brain that just makes things worse?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, that kind of stress would grind anyone down. But if you're vulnerable the way he is, it's going to express itself even more dramatically.
Thanks so much for watching. Please click that like button and subscribe to Occupy Democrats so that you can stay informed and help us stop Donald Trump.